They are not defeating you because they are stronger. They are defeating you because they understand one thing you ignore. The human mind is the greatest battlefield ever created. Every insult, every betrayal, every manipulation, every silent smile hides a psychological move. While you react emotionally, they calculate patiently. While you fight with force, they conquer with perception. The day you stop fighting people and start mastering the game inside their minds is the day you become impossible to defeat. The greatest mistake most people make when facing an enemy is believing that victory belongs to the loudest voice, the strongest fist, or the fastest reaction. It doesn't. Real victory belongs to the person who refuses to become emotionally predictable. The moment someone can control your emotions, they no longer need to control your actions. Your emotions will do that for them. Think about every major conflict you've experienced. Perhaps someone insulted you publicly. Maybe a coworker tried to undermine your reputation. Maybe someone betrayed your trust or spread lies behind your back. What was your first instinct? Anger, defensiveness, the overwhelming urge to respond immediately. That is exactly what your opponent wanted. They weren't simply attacking your character, they were testing your emotional discipline. The reaction they hoped for was never physical, it was psychological. The human mind has a weakness. It wants immediate justice. It wants revenge now. It wants to explain, defend, argue, and prove itself. But this desire for instant satisfaction often becomes the very trap that destroys strategic thinking. Once emotion takes over, logic quietly exits the room. You stop seeing possibilities and start chasing validation. You stop planning and start reacting. The truly dangerous individual understands this. They never fight the person standing in front of them. They fight the emotions inside that person. If they can provoke anger, they create mistakes. If they can create fear, they gain control. If they can trigger insecurity, they no longer need superior intelligence because their opponent begins defeating themselves. This is why emotional control is not weakness, it is concealed strength. Silence has always frightened emotional people. When someone expects an explosion and receives calm instead, uncertainty begins to grow inside them. They start questioning whether their strategy worked. They begin wondering what you're thinking. They search your face for clues and find none. Suddenly, the person who intended to manipulate you becomes the one feeling uncomfortable. Most people believe power is speaking louder than everyone else. In reality, power often sounds like saying nothing at all. Imagine two chess players. One loses a valuable piece early in the game and immediately panics. Their breathing changes. Their moves become rushed. They focus on recovering what they lost instead of creating new opportunities. The other player experiences the exact same setback but remains composed. Their expression never changes. They continue calculating 5 moves ahead. Which player is more likely to win? Not necessarily the one with the better position, but the one with the better emotional discipline. Life follows the same principle. Your enemies are constantly gathering information about you, not through surveillance, but through observation. Every complaint you make, every emotional outburst, every impulsive decision reveals something valuable. It tells them your fears, your insecurities, your desires, and your breaking point. The more emotional you become, the more intelligence you hand them for free. Imagine meeting someone who never reveals frustration, never argues unnecessarily, never rushes into conflict, and never allows insults to dictate their behavior. Such a person becomes incredibly difficult to manipulate. Their unpredictability creates psychological pressure. Others cannot determine what affects them or how to control them. That uncertainty becomes a weapon more powerful than aggression. History repeatedly shows that the most effective leaders, negotiators, and strategists were not those who lacked emotion. They simply refused to let emotion become the decision maker. They experienced anger, disappointment, and betrayal just like everyone else. The difference was that they delayed their reaction until emotion no longer controlled their judgment. This is one of the hardest disciplines to master because your ego constantly whispers that immediate action proves strength. It tells you that remaining silent looks weak, that walking away means surrender, that refusing to argue means admitting defeat. But your ego seeks satisfaction, not victory. Real strength is allowing the emotional storm to pass before making your move. Notice how manipulators become frustrated when they fail to provoke you. They often escalate their behavior. They insult more aggressively. They spread greater rumors. They become increasingly desperate because their original strategy failed. They relied on your reaction to fuel the conflict. Without your participation, they begin fighting themselves. Your calm becomes their confusion. Your patience becomes their frustration. Your discipline becomes their weakness. This does not mean becoming passive or allowing people to disrespect you forever. Emotional control is not the absence of action. It is the mastery of timing. There is a profound difference between reacting and responding. A reaction is immediate, emotional, and predictable. A response is deliberate, calculated, and effective. One is driven by impulse. The other is guided by purpose. The greatest psychological advantage you can develop is becoming impossible to provoke. Let people underestimate your silence. Let them mistake your patience for weakness. While they waste energy trying to pull you into emotional chaos, you remain focused on the larger objective, because in every battle of the mind, the person who governs their own emotions first is usually the one who governs the outcome of the entire conflict. One of the greatest misconceptions about power is that you must constantly prove it. Most people believe that to defeat an enemy, they need to confront them, question them, expose them, or force the truth into the open. But the masters of psychological strategy understand something far more effective. People reveal themselves naturally when you stop interrupting them. Your enemy's greatest weakness is not their arrogance, their anger, or even their ambition. It is their inability to remain hidden forever. Human nature has an irresistible desire to express itself. People want to be recognized. They want to be understood. They want to demonstrate their intelligence, superiority, and influence. If you simply create enough space, they will often expose everything you need to know without realizing it. The average person fears silence. They rush to fill every pause with explanations, opinions, promises, and emotions. But silence is not empty. Silence is pressure. It forces people to confront their own thoughts. When someone becomes uncomfortable, they begin speaking, not because you asked the perfect question, but because they need relief from the discomfort. Imagine sitting across from someone who has lied to you. Most people would immediately begin accusing them, presenting evidence, demanding answers, and trying to catch contradictions. But the more you speak, the more opportunities you give them to prepare defenses. Every accusation tells them exactly what you know and what you don't. Every emotional reaction helps them adjust their story. Now imagine doing something completely different. You simply look at them calmly. You remain silent. You allow the conversation to breathe. That silence becomes unbearable. They begin explaining details you never asked about. They add unnecessary information. They try to convince you before you've even accused them. Their own anxiety becomes the interrogator. Their own words become the evidence. This is one of the oldest psychological truths. People often confess to relieve pressure, not because they were forced to. Your greatest weapon is observation. Most individuals enter every room focused on being noticed. Powerful individuals enter every room focused on noticing. While everyone else is trying to impress, they are quietly collecting information. They observe who interrupts others. They notice who constantly seeks validation. They recognize who changes their personality depending on the audience. They watch facial expressions after compliments and after criticism. They study reactions, not rehearsed words. Words are carefully chosen. Reactions are usually automatic. An enemy may successfully control their speech, but controlling instinctive behavior is much harder. Watch what happens when someone doesn't get their way. Notice how they respond when another person receives praise instead of them. Observe how they behave toward people who have nothing to offer them. These moments reveal character more accurately than any conversation ever could. Patience transforms ordinary observation into extraordinary intelligence. Most people sabotage themselves because they want answers immediately. They cannot tolerate uncertainty, so they pressure others for explanations before enough information exists. As a result, they make decisions based on assumptions rather than evidence. Strategic thinkers understand that time is an ally Every day reveals something new. Patterns begin to emerge, contradictions become visible, false personalities become difficult to maintain. Eventually, masks grow heavy. People who pretend to be kind eventually reveal resentment. Those pretending to be humble eventually seek admiration. Those pretending to be loyal eventually expose their self-interest. Human beings can perform almost any role for a short period. Maintaining that performance indefinitely is nearly impossible. That is why patience often defeats intelligence. There is another mistake people frequently make when dealing with rivals. They underestimate the power of curiosity. Instead of allowing others to speak freely, they dominate conversations with their own opinions. In doing so, they learn nothing. Become the person who asks thoughtful questions and genuinely listens. People love talking about themselves. They reveal ambitions. They reveal fears. They reveal frustrations. They reveal jealousies. Most importantly, they reveal what motivates them. Once you understand someone's deepest motivation, you begin predicting their future decisions. A person driven by status behaves differently from someone driven by money. Someone motivated by revenge thinks differently from someone seeking approval. Understanding motives is far more valuable than memorizing facts because motives rarely change. Never mistake appearance for reality. Some of the loudest people possess the weakest confidence. Some of the quietest individuals possess the strongest influence. Some who appear fearless are desperately protecting fragile egos. Others who seem insignificant are carefully calculating every move. This is why observation must remain free from assumption. See what exists, not what you expect to find. Your enemy also reveals themselves through inconsistency. Anyone can behave well during success. The real personality appears under pressure. Failure, criticism, rejection, and unexpected setbacks strip away carefully constructed images. Watch how someone reacts when circumstances stop favoring them. Their response tells you more than years of pleasant conversation ever could. Resist the temptation to reveal everything about yourself while gathering information about others. Every unnecessary detail you share becomes another tool someone may use against you. Let people believe they understand you while you continue understanding them. Mystery creates caution. Predictability creates vulnerability. The individual who speaks the least often hears the most. The one who reacts the least usually understands the most. The one who observes the longest makes the fewest costly mistakes. In every psychological battle, information is power, and the person who masters patience, silence, and observation rarely needs to chase the truth because sooner or later, the truth walks directly toward them, wearing the face of the person trying hardest to hide it. Most people spend their lives trying to become powerful. The truly dangerous individual spends their life appearing powerful before they ever need to prove it. This is one of the oldest and most overlooked principles of psychology. People do not respond to reality first, they respond to perception. Long before they discover who you truly are, they have already formed an opinion based on what they believe you are. That belief shapes everything that follows. Walk into any room, and within seconds, people begin making silent judgments. They evaluate your confidence, your value, your competence, and even your intentions without hearing more than a few words. Human beings are wired to create quick mental shortcuts. They don't patiently wait for evidence. They construct stories based on appearance, behavior, body language, and emotional presence. Those stories often become stronger than the truth itself. Your enemies understand this better than you think. Notice how manipulators rarely attack someone's abilities first. They attack perception. They spread doubt. They create rumors. They plant subtle ideas that slowly change how others see you. Once perception changes, people begin interpreting everything you do through that distorted lens. Suddenly your confidence is called arrogance. Your silence is called guilt. Your ambition becomes selfishness. Nothing about you has actually changed, yet the story surrounding you has completely shifted. This is why perception is often more powerful than force. If people already believe you are weak, they become bolder in challenging you. If they believe you are uncertain, they become more aggressive. If they believe you are desperate for approval, they know exactly how to manipulate you. Long before conflict begins, perception determines how others decide to treat you. Never underestimate the psychological power of first impressions. A person who carries themselves with calm confidence often receives more respect than someone who constantly talks about their achievements. Confidence is rarely communicated through words. It is communicated through certainty, through posture, through patience, through the ability to remain composed while everyone else seeks attention. The strongest presence in the room is often the person who feels no need to announce their strength. Your actions should always support the image you wish to project, but your image should never depend on constant explanation. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to convince everyone of their worth. They explain themselves endlessly. They defend every decision. They answer every criticism. In doing so, they unknowingly communicate insecurity. The more desperately you seek validation, the less valuable you appear. Psychologically, scarcity creates value. This principle applies not only to material things, but also to attention, words, emotions, and availability. When someone constantly explains themselves, they become predictable. When someone reacts to every opinion, they become easy to influence. But when someone speaks carefully, chooses their moments wisely, and refuses to chase approval, people begin assigning greater importance to everything they do. Mystery creates curiosity. Curiosity creates attention. Attention creates influence. That does not mean becoming dishonest or pretending to be someone you are not. It means understanding that not every thought deserves expression, and not every battle deserves your participation. Strategic restraint creates psychological impact. Consider how often people misunderstand silence. Some interpret it as confidence, others interpret it as intelligence. Still others assume hidden strength. Why? Because the human mind dislikes uncertainty. Whenever information is missing, imagination rushes in to fill the gap. Ironically, people often create a stronger image of you than anything you could have created yourself. This is why your enemies become frustrated when they cannot easily define you. If they cannot predict your emotions, they hesitate. If they cannot predict your decisions, they become cautious. If they cannot understand your intentions, they waste mental energy trying to interpret them. That uncertainty quietly shifts the balance of power. Another important principle is consistency. Many people destroy their own reputation by behaving differently depending on who is watching. They appear confident among friends, but insecure around authority. They act generous when admired, but selfish when unnoticed. These contradictions weaken perception because inconsistency creates distrust. Psychological strength comes from stability. Become someone whose behavior remains steady whether life is easy or difficult, whether people praise you or criticize you. Consistency builds credibility, and credibility becomes influence. Remember that people pay more attention to what you repeatedly do than what you occasionally say. Your reputation is not built during extraordinary moments. It is built during ordinary ones. Every promise you keep, every emotional reaction you control, every challenge you face with composure, every unnecessary argument you refuse to enter, these small moments quietly construct an image that becomes stronger over time. There is another dangerous mistake people make. They confuse visibility with influence. They believe being seen everywhere means becoming powerful. In reality, constant exposure often reduces impact. When people know exactly what you think, what you feel, and what your next move will be, your ability to surprise disappears. Predictability is the enemy of psychological power. Leave room for uncertainty. Allow your actions to speak louder than your announcements. Let results introduce you before your words ever do. Your enemies are always trying to calculate your next move. Do not make their job easier. The less information they possess, the more they are forced to guess. And decisions based on guesses are often flawed. Perhaps the greatest lesson is this: never become obsessed with changing everyone's opinion of you. That is a battle with no finish line. Instead, focus on becoming the kind of person whose quiet confidence, disciplined actions, and unwavering self-control naturally shape perception over time. Those who constantly chase approval surrender their power to public opinion. Those who quietly build character eventually shape the opinions of others without ever asking for permission. The moment you understand that perception is the battlefield before action, you stop wasting energy trying to win every argument and begin mastering something far more valuable: the invisible influence that determines how every future battle is fought before the first move is ever made. One of the greatest advantages you can ever possess is not superior intelligence, extraordinary strength, or unlimited resources. It is becoming impossible to predict. The human mind is constantly searching for patterns. Every day, people unconsciously study the behavior of those around them. They observe routines, habits, emotional triggers, and decision-making styles because predictability creates comfort. Once someone believes they understand your patterns, they begin believing they can control your future actions. That is where psychological defeat begins. Your enemies are always trying to answer one question: what will this person do next? The moment they believe they know the answer, they start preparing against you. They anticipate your reactions. They calculate your weaknesses. They manipulate your emotions because your behavior follows a familiar script. Never hand anyone that script. The most dangerous individuals in history were not always the strongest. They were the hardest to anticipate. Their opponents wasted enormous amounts of energy trying to predict moves that never came. Instead of following expectations, they created uncertainty, and uncertainty is one of the most powerful psychological weapons ever discovered. Think about how easily people manipulate someone who reacts the same way every single time. They know exactly what insults will make you angry. They know which compliments will earn your trust. They know what fears will make you hesitate. They know what desires will make you compromise. In other words, they possess your psychological map. Every repeated reaction gives another piece of that map away. Now imagine becoming someone whose emotional responses cannot be calculated. Someone insults you, and instead of arguing, you smile. Someone expects you to chase them, and you quietly walk away. Someone assumes you'll panic under pressure, but you become calmer than ever. Someone believes you'll seek revenge immediately, yet you patiently wait for the perfect moment to act. Their confidence begins collapsing because the strategy they prepared no longer works. People become uncomfortable when their expectations fail. Psychologists have long understood that the human brain constantly predicts future events. When those predictions prove incorrect, the brain experiences uncertainty. That uncertainty demands attention. Suddenly, the person who believed they understood you begins questioning everything. What are they thinking? Why didn't they react? What are they planning? Instead of occupying your mind, you begin occupying theirs. This shift is where psychological dominance begins. One of the greatest traps people fall into is becoming prisoners of their own identity. They proudly announce who they are, what they always do, what they never tolerate, and how they always respond. While this may feel authentic, it also provides everyone around them with a complete instruction manual. Avoid becoming so transparent that others can finish your sentences before you speak. Leave room for surprise. Leave room for adaptation. Leave room for strategic flexibility. Being unpredictable does not mean behaving irrationally. Chaos without purpose creates weakness, not power. True unpredictability is controlled. It is intentional. It means refusing to let habit dictate every decision. It means responding according to the situation rather than according to your ego. Consider water. Water has no permanent shape. Pour it into a glass and it becomes the glass. Pour it into a river and it follows the current. Freeze it and it becomes solid. Heat it and it becomes invisible vapor. Its strength comes from adaptation, not rigidity. Your mind should possess the same flexibility. Rigid people are easy to defeat because circumstances eventually force them into positions they cannot escape. Flexible people constantly adjust while preserving their purpose. Their methods change, but their objective remains the same. There is another important lesson hidden within unpredictability. Never reveal every plan before it becomes reality. Many people sabotage themselves by announcing every goal they have. They tell everyone about the business they will build, the success they will achieve, the revenge they intend to take, or the transformation they are preparing. In doing so, they give opponents time to prepare obstacles, spread doubt, or quietly interfere. Move quietly. Let your progress surprise people. Results always speak louder than intentions. An enemy cannot defend against a move they never saw coming. Likewise, resist becoming emotionally available to everyone around you. This does not mean becoming cold or unkind. It means understanding that not every thought belongs in public. Some victories are achieved precisely because no one knew they were being prepared. Mystery forces respect. Constant explanation invites interference. Another habit of psychologically untouchable people is that they refuse to become addicted to approval. Approval creates predictability because people soon discover exactly how to influence you. If compliments control your behavior, someone will flatter you. If criticism controls your behavior, someone will criticize you. If attention controls your behavior, someone will give or withdraw attention to manipulate your decisions. Freedom begins the moment your decisions are no longer purchased by other people's opinions. The less dependent you become on external validation, the more difficult you become to manipulate. Your enemies thrive on emotional dependence. Break that dependence, and many of their strategies collapse instantly. Understand also that unpredictability includes knowing when not to fight. Many people assume strength requires constant confrontation. In reality, selective engagement is often far more intimidating. Sometimes, refusing to participate in unnecessary conflict creates greater psychological pressure than winning the argument itself. Your silence forces imagination to work against those who oppose you. Your patience forces impulsive people to exhaust themselves. Your discipline forces emotional people into mistakes. Eventually, they begin revealing more than they intended simply because they cannot understand your restraint. Perhaps the highest level of psychological mastery is reaching a point where your peace cannot be disturbed by someone else's chaos. Imagine becoming so grounded that praise never inflates your ego and criticism never destroys your confidence. Imagine reaching a level where manipulation simply passes by because it no longer finds anything inside you to attach itself to. That is what it means to become psychologically untouchable. Not because no one attacks you, not because no one envies you, not because no one attempts to manipulate you, but because every attempt to pull you into their game fails before it even begins. The strongest mind is not the one that wins every battle. It is the one that refuses to surrender control of itself, remains adaptable in every circumstance, and becomes so impossible to predict that those who once believed they could manipulate you slowly realize they are no longer fighting the person they thought they understood, but a mind that has learned to move beyond expectation and operate on a level they can no longer anticipate.